So I've responded to quite a few Muslims at this point, but I'm pretty sure they've all been Sunni. Let's switch it up. Let's get a Shia Muslim in here for a change. Hit me, Top Hat.
There were many in his time, such as the likes of Abu Shakir al-Daysani, who would come and debate Imam Al-Sadiq in relation to God's existence. And Imam Al-Sadiq would always be willing to entertain their questions.
That was very open-minded of him. Yeah, great guy. I met him at a party once. So hey, since it's such a great thing to keep the dialogue open, how about you tell me some of the arguments Imam Al-Sadiq had for the existence of God, and I'll share my opinion. Sounds like fun, eh?
I'll never forget when someone asked Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam, if God truly exists, can he fit the whole universe into an egg without the egg getting bigger or the universe getting smaller?
Oh yeah, I remember that too. That guy was crazy! And the answer is obviously, it depends how big the egg is.
What's a line?
Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam looked at the person and he said to him, this is very simple.
Giant egg! Giant egg!
Now when we hear the question again, some of us, our answer would be, of course, God could do anything. If someone asked us, can he fit the whole universe into an egg without the egg getting bigger or the universe getting smaller, we just say, yes, God can do anything. But that's not enough.
Actually, it kind of should be. I mean, after all, no rules are supposed to apply to God. He's supposed to be the one who made all the rules of how things work, which obviously means that even if fitting a big thing in a small container without changing either thing is impossible by the rules we're used to, he's God. He should just be able to change the rules or circumvent them so it's possible. But the answer's still a giant egg.
Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam looked at him. He said, how many senses do you have?
Well, that one's easy. The number varies based on different definitions, but there are the 5 traditional senses that everyone can name, which are sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. And then there's a host of other senses, which can include things like balance, pain, thermoception, hunger, stretch reception in the lungs and the bladder, and so on. And even the sense of time, and the list goes on.
He said 5.
Well, 8th century, it's okay.
He said to him, what's the smallest of the senses that you have?
That's an odd way to ask the question. It's more about the size of the sensory system than the sense itself, isn't it? Yeah, I know I'm nitpicking, forget it.
He said, my eyesight.
Look, I hate to nitpick again, but how can your eyesight be small? Isn't it more that your eyes are small? You know, I don't want to have to nitpick for things to say all the way through this video, so I really hope the next thing out of your mouth is properly crazy.
He said, what do you see with your eyesight? He said, I see forests, I see trees, I see buildings. He said to him, the Lord who could fit all of these into your eye, you think he can't fit the universe into an egg?
Okay. I think my wish was just fulfilled more beautifully than I could have ever dreamed for, but I'm still not quite sure I heard it. Can you repeat that for me just once, please?
He said, what do you see with your eyesight? He said, I see forests, I see trees, I see buildings. He said to him, the Lord who could fit all of these into your eye, you think he can't fit the universe into an egg? It's a wonderful line of Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam.
What a line!
Yes, it is a wonderful line. It really is. Oh my god, it's glorious. How can you think, how is this real?
Those of you who've walked in Manhattan and seen those skyscrapers, have you ever thought, how is it that a building so high can be fit into this eye?
No, of course I haven't wondered that. Because I understand what light is. What can I possibly say? I mean, I could explain how sight works. I could tell him how light enters the eye through the pupil and gets focused onto the retina, which has light-sensing cells and so on. And so there's no need for everything you see to be literally stuffed full size into your eyeball. But that just wouldn't do this justice. There's nothing I can add that can improve this crown jewel of comedic art. No, this is simply perfect. This belongs in a museum. But I think this is ahead of its time. I don't believe the average museum curator will understand why this needs to be in their museum. So instead, I would like you to watch this with me on a loop 27 times. Unfortunately, I fear that the glory of that experience might be lost on the majority of you. It's just too revolutionary. You'll understand in time. But instead, I will play it back 27 times, but I will double its speed each time.
Those of you who've walked in Manhattan and seen those skyscrapers, have you ever thought, how is it that a building so high can be fit into this eye. Those of you who've walked in Manhattan and seen those skyscrapers, have you ever thought, how is it that a building so high can be fit into this eye? Those of you who've walked in Manhattan and seen those skyscrapers, have you ever thought, how is it that a building so high can be fit into this eye? Those of you who've walked in Manhattan and seen those skyscrapers, have you ever thought, how is it that...
There we are. Magnificent. Okay, so now that I've got that out of my system, the answer, again, is no. I've never, even once, wondered how the skyscrapers can fit inside my eyeball. Nobody's ever wondered that. They didn't even wonder about that in Aristotle's time. Where are you from? When are you from? Are you a caveman? Are you an alien from an alternate universe? How can you think like this? And look, this isn't even the only time you used this argument. This isn't some new material you're trying out here. Look on and marvel.
He said, if Allah can fit all of those into your eyes, then why can He not fit the universe into an egg?
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. No! What the hell, audience? Don't Allahu Akbar that. Didn't you hear what he just told you? Do you think that is how your eyes work?
Isn't it a shame we haven't studied Ja'far Al-Sadiq?
No! Please do not make people study the guy who said sight works by every object you see being teleported full size into your eyeballs. Just let him slide into the dustbin of history where he belongs, please. Thank you. Move on. Just move on to something else. You're gonna break my funny fuse if you continue. I can't have that.
On another occasion, a person came to Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam and said to him, show me God. So the Imam said to him, look at the sun.
Oh, I think I've heard this one before in the pink bathroom elephant video. I'll throw up a link to that in a card. But you know what? I find this argument so nice, I'll hear it twice. Go on.
As soon as he looked at the sun, he turned his eyes away. The Imam looked at him and said, what's wrong with you? He said, the rays of light of the sun are burning my eyes. I had to move. They were blinding my eyes. Imam Al-Sadiq said, if you cannot bear to see the created, how do you expect to see the creator?
You see what I mean about it being a nice one? Some parts of the creation are so bright you can't look at them without hurting yourself. So the creator must be so bright you can't look at it without hurting yourself either. It's really an incredible discovery. I had no idea that there's a person in the world who can run 100 kilometers an hour carrying 5 people, but it must be true because someone created my car! And I'm always a big hit at parties, because since I make YouTube videos, people can poke me in the chin and change my resolution to 144p. But I'm not sure what, if anything, this has to do with whether God actually exists or not. Same for the skyscraper eyeball thing. Can you explain how these arguments address that, which is what you said you were going to address?
In other words, here, one of the arguments which Imam Al-Sadiq seeks to posit about the proof of God's existence is for every effect there must be a cause. And there has to be a first cause who brought everything into existence.
No, I don't think that's an accurate restatement of either argument you just made. You can fit a skyscraper in your eye and therefore God can fit the universe in an egg is not an argument about the necessity of a first cause. Nor is you can't look at the sun so you can't look at a God. So...
something cannot come out of nothing. And I think all of us as human beings accept this.
So what you're telling me then is that you believe all the building materials for the universe were just lying around and God took them and reshaped them into a universe? That's weird because I thought Muslims believed he actually created the universe, like from scratch, in which case he made it out of nothing, in which case something can come from nothing.
And accept the probability of this world coming in the order which it has come in is zeros reaching the billions. Yes?
Well, that all depends on if the universe operates in a fully deterministic way, doesn't it? If it does, then given a particular set of starting conditions, the probability of it ending up exactly like it is now is 1 in 1. There's literally no chance of it ending up a different way. But if you inject chance into the mix, then yeah, the precise current state of the universe is wildly improbable. The chances of it happening the same way twice would be next to impossible. And similarly, if I hand you a coin and make you flip it 1,000,000 times, and then I tell you to do it again, you're gonna have some difficulty. And yet the outcome you got the first time, although wildly improbable, happened. The problem you're having here is that your religion has twisted your thoughts around all backwards on you. If someone handed you a book full of 1,000,000 coin flip results and said, I will perform 1,000,000 coin flips that match these results exactly, and then actually managed to do it, it would be incredible, because the probability of getting a specific desired outcome is 1 in 2 to the millionth power. But if someone just flipped a million coins without specifying any particular outcome first, the result would be equally improbable, 2 to the millionth power. But it would be distinctly less impressive because the odds of getting just any result, not one that was specifically desired, is 1 in 1. It's 100%. And yet here you are, impressed that the universe is exactly this way and not some other way because you, here in the present, looked back on the past and decided that this must be the result somebody was trying for all along.
It's absurd for a person to think that this all came by accident.
It's absurd for a person to think those million coin flips came by accident.
On the one hand, you prove God's existence by saying for every design, there must be a designer. For every painting, there must be a painter. For every car, there must have been a manufacturer. Likewise, for the creations of Allah on earth, there has to be a creator.
You know what? I actually agree with you completely. For the creations of Allah, there has to be a creator because they're creations. By definition, they have to have a creator. So now all you have to do is prove that Allah exists and that He created anything, and whatever you manage to prove was created by Him, I will agree, has to have a creator. Unfortunately, the number of items currently confirmed as having been created by Allah is 0. The best we tend to get when we ask someone for evidence that some item was actually created by Allah is that someone will point at something and say, well, that seems pretty complicated. So if Allah didn't do it, then I can't think of a good reason why it's there. And that would suck, which I'm afraid is just not that compelling.
Another argument is that we are all possible beings. We had no control into coming into this world. There has to be a necessary existence who began all of this.
It sounds to me like you're talking about Thomas Aquinas' third way to prove the existence of God. In which case, I have no idea why a Muslim feels the need to snatch Christian apologetics, but okay, it sounds fun. Let's pick that apart then. Aquinas says,
"The third way is taken from possibility and necessity, and runs thus. We find in nature things that are possible to be and not to be, since they are found to be generated and to corrupt, and consequently, they are possible to be and not to be."
Okay, so right off the bat, there's a bit of a problem. In nature, we find things that are found to be generated and to corrupt, or in other words, to come into existence and to pass out of it again. So what does he mean by that? The arrangement of matter and energy, which we call an animal, is in a sense created and destroyed. But the matter and energy themselves that comprise it are not. The total energy of the universe is conserved over time, at least until we get back to the Big Bang, which we'll talk about in a minute. And so we have no reason to believe that energy can be created or destroyed, at least within the context of the universe. And before anyone mentions virtual particles, I mean in a way that alters the total energy of the universe on average. Now, we can modernize the concept of the destruction of things, at least, and we could think about it more that if we consider the universe to stretch infinitely into the past with no Big Bang, then by now the universe would have reached heat death, and nothing we see around us would be possible. But in that hypothetical, the energy still exists along the entire timeline. The energy would not have been destroyed, it would just be in a different state where nothing much happens.
But it is impossible for these always to exist, for that which is possible not to be at some time is not.
The point of this statement is that if it's possible for something not to exist, then given infinite time in the past, it will at some time not have existed, since in an infinite amount of time, all possible things will happen. And that's true. But, for it to be impossible for energy to always exist, it would have to first be demonstrated that energy actually can be created or destroyed, which has not been done.
Therefore, if everything is possible not to be, then at one time there could have been nothing in existence.
Yeah, and I will even harden the claim for Aquinas. He uses the word could, and I'll replace it with will. If the universe stretches into the past infinitely, and if it's possible for all things not to exist at some point, then it is possible for all things to lack existence at the same time, even if there are infinite things along the timeline. And since in infinite time all possible things will happen, there must be some time when nothing existed. But again, this is all a hypothetical scenario. It's not based in reality.
Now, if this were true, even now there would be nothing in existence, because that which does not exist only begins to exist by something already existing.
This is still based on the assumption that energy in the universe are all impermanent, of course, because Aquinas wasn't thinking in terms of the permanence or impermanence of matter or energy, but the impermanence of collections of matter and energy that we humans put labels on. And in addition, this claim was based on nothing more than Aquinas' intuition. He's whatever you would call the equivalent of a hard atheist, except about the claim that something could come into existence on its own, even before the existence of the universe and all physical laws and features that implies, including, potentially, the rules of cause and effect. He's stuck thinking within the rules under which he's lived for his entire life. Now, in ordinary conversation, I wouldn't fault the guy for that too much, but in a logical argument for something's existence, you have to be more careful and precise than that. Just imagine the reaction if I used "there is no God" as a premise in a serious logical argument for the existence of something else. It wouldn't go over very well.
Therefore, if at one time nothing was in existence, it would have been impossible for anything to have begun to exist, and thus even now nothing would be in existence, which is absurd.
If we grant all of Aquinas' myriad assumptions, this is correct. But his assumptions, or I should say his assertions, are based on no evidence except for the limited 13th century intuition of Thomas Aquinas. The assumption that time extends infinitely into the past is unsupported. The assumption that there ever was nothing in existence is unsupported. The assumption that even outside of the context of the rules of our universe, outside of time itself, the time-based rules of cause and effect apply is unsupported. And I don't just mean they were unsupported by Aquinas, who I wouldn't expect to support them. I mean they're still unsupported. The modern scientific understanding simply does not hold those as facts. In the 13th century, they would have sounded very obvious and valid. But in the 21st century, they don't. And you should know that, Mr. Nakshawani. But you also think sight works by wedging full-size skyscrapers into people's eyes, so I guess maybe I expect too much out of you.
Therefore, not all beings are merely possible, but there must exist something the existence of which is necessary.
Necessary as in it's impossible that it doesn't exist, and so in infinite time in which all possible things will happen, it would never cease to exist. But every necessary thing, blah 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 blah, the necessary thing is the first thing and everyone calls that God. Not the universe, not whatever might have been there before the Big Bang if that's not God, and not two things or three things or four things. Nope, gotta be God for some reason. Man, Aquinas was unimaginative. What a line of shit this whole argument is.
What's a line?
Now, I can't say I'm surprised that you were suckered in by that one, but at least when Aquinas says it, his argument sounds like an argument. When you say it, you just sound like a babbling idiot. So next time, how about you actually make the argument instead of just, spitting out the words possible and necessary and then expecting your audience to put together an argument with them?
But there is one fundamental argument which I use personally.
Oh, so you don't use the other ones? Why not? Aren't they good enough? Well, then why'd you just use them then? And if this is your best one, why didn't you lead with this?
I, as a Muslim and a follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, believed in God because of looking at the behavior of the Imams of Al-Muhammad alayhim salam.
So, the reason you believe in God is not because of any of the arguments you just made. Skyscrapers in your eyes, God's super bright so you shouldn't look at him, any outcome of a million coin flips is highly improbable and thus super impressive, or that one you ripped off Aquinas. None of those are your real reason. Your real reason is, some people behave well, therefore God. Well, I have to admit that is a less stupid reason than the other ones.
If Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam tells me there's a God, I really don't need any philosophical or scientific proofs.
For the benefit of the audience who doesn't know what you just said, he's talking about Ali, Muhammad's cousin, who, according to the Shia, was the first Imam. And the Shia talk about him a lot. So much that I can really understand where the Sunnis get their confused idea that the Shia follow Ali and not Muhammad. This statement here is a prime example. If Ali tells me there's a God, I don't need any philosophical or scientific proofs. Oh, if Ali tells you, not if Muhammad tells you. I mean, look, the idea of taking anyone as an authority without evidence seems ridiculous to me, but all I'm saying is taking Ali as that authority instead of Muhammad just seems like really bad marketing.
When a man like Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam lives the way he lives, is humble in the humility that he has, is honorable in the way he is with others, when he tells me there is a God, I cannot lose by believing in a God.
Ah, I see. Well, I've spoken with humble, honorable people who told me there is no God, and others who told me there are multiple gods, and others who told me there is a God, but it's nothing like yours. There are lots of humble, honorable people, and they don't all share the same opinion. So if your only criteria for believing someone's every single extraordinary claim is that they're humble and honorable, then how on earth is your brain not a conflicted mess of multiple religions and atheism all at the same time? Or do you think that people can only be truly humble and honorable if they're Muslims? Because they're humble enough to submit themselves to God. That probably actually is it.
I can certainly inquire philosophically and I can inquire scientifically, but when Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam is humble even towards his killer Ibn Muljam, when that Ali worships a God, I want the God of Ali.
Right, so in other words, you can idly browse through philosophical and scientific ideas looking for something that superficially kinda sorta seems to confirm your ideas. Not because you need to convince yourself, but just so that when someone asks you why you believe all this absolute nonsense, you're not caught with nothing more to say than, Ali was a nice dude. But you don't really care if you actually understand any of the concepts, or even if they're true. I mean, for fuck's sake, you've somehow been convinced that full-size skyscrapers teleport into your eyes when you look at them. If the only reason you believe is because Ali told you it's true, then you don't need to waste our time presenting your other garbage arguments. You can just say that one thing.
Because I cannot lose worshipping the God of Ali, whatever his name is, because if it allows me to be half of a character like Ali, then I've been successful in this world.
Okay, then apparently your criteria for success in this world don't actually include figuring out the truth about anything. Just find any arbitrary historical figure in a book whose author wrote the character in a way that sounds good to you, and then try to believe in whatever bizarre beings they believed in, no matter how outrageous, and no matter whether there's the slightest shred of evidence. And then just sit back and hope that somehow, just by doing that, you'll absorb all of their character traits, despite the fact that there are already millions of people who believe the same thing and have radically different characters. And then, when that inevitably fails, just keep believing it anyway, because meh, it'd take effort to change my mind, especially if I have to have a good reason first. Anyway, well, that's it for this one. If you enjoy my videos, you can support me on Patreon, and all of my supporters are very much appreciated. If you want to see more videos, subscribe and thumb up this video, and I will see you soon.